Welcome back, everybody. It is Monday, August 27th, 2018, 4:49 p.m. We are continuing to watch Tropical Storm Miriam, really right on the border now of becoming a Category 1 storm. Right here, we are reading 65 mile per hour sustained winds. This chart gets updated every few hours. If we go over to Tropical Tidbits, you could see the gusts reading says not available. I believe that's because they are actually currently getting new readings as of right now. So by the time this video uploads, this may very well be a Category 1 storm, which was actually forecasted to have been already done by this time today, around 5 o'clock. So it is pretty much on schedule as far as what we talked about yesterday. Now, as far as the track for Miriam goes, this is what we need to look out for. For the next 2 or 3 days, this thing will be on a westward track, fairly straight line south of the Big Island of Hawaii, and then it takes a pretty dramatic northern hook, and that is due to a release in the pressure in the Pacific Ocean we talk about. That is also what we talk about with the Atlantic Ocean and the Bermuda Atlantic pressure bubble, that high pressure, which is why the storms stay low. When that releases, they want to go north naturally. Now, this is what it's showing here on these spaghetti plots. Now, if this stays true, this is a good thing. This will totally miss Hawaii, but the next 3 days, 4 days, going into about Thursday is what we really want to watch right around this area. If this thing stays low for even a day longer than what it shows here, we could be dealing with a totally different situation as Miriam makes its approach more to the west into the middle of the Pacific and hopefully dying out, not really becoming a threat to Hawaii. With that said, we have two other disturbances, one which we talked about yesterday and another one that just formed. 20% chance over the next 5 days. Okay, so that is pretty low. Not surprising to see it, though. The one we are concerned about, though, is this disturbance number 1, 90% chance over 5 days. This would be letter N. This would be Norman. And the reason this one is causing me concern, at least as far as Hawaii goes, is because of its projected path. Now, if we scroll down, also on top of that, Tropical Storm Elaine has been upgraded. This was a depression. This was the storm that just caused all the flooding and havoc in Hawaii. It is upgraded now to a tropical storm once again, expected to actually get stronger and move to the north into typhoon territory. But we are talking about that 90%, which is Invest 90E. And what I want you to look at are the projected paths. Now, this thing is expected to stay on a much more straight western path, going right towards the Big Island of Hawaii. You could see the Big Island right here. Now, all that is going to depend on whether or not this thing hooks north or goes below it. Again, are those pressures in the Pacific Ocean. Again, this storm is after Miriam, so those pressures that are affecting Miriam are not going to be the same pressures that affect this storm, as it is probably 4 to 5 days behind Miriam. Miriam, however you want to pronounce it. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm sure you guys can help me down below. But you can clearly see that this path is a lot different than what we have for Miriam, which I will show you one more time. There is the 90% right here. We scroll up to current storms. This is Miriam, so we can see the drastic difference in these paths. This one wants to take almost a step up into the middle of the Pacific, where it will more than likely die out. The lower it stays, the longer it stays in warm water, the closer to the equator it is. That would be the concern for Miriam. And then, as I said, Norman is the one to also be concerned about with a straight western path, if that makes sense. Sorry if I'm all over the place there. Also, really quick, guys, we have a bunch of different situations going on in the continental U.S. Severe heat wave going on right now. It is so hot outside and muggy. It's almost not good to be outside. That's how hot we're talking. At the same time, if you take a look up by Minnesota and Wisconsin, we have flash flood warnings, thunderstorm warnings, a lot of action going on up there. That is going to be the talk of the continental U.S. For a few reasons. One being that the wind it is bringing with it is pretty severe. These are damaging winds if this stays the way it shows as 45%. And you could see how it crosses from Minnesota's border into Wisconsin. That will eventually cross over the Great Lakes, affecting areas of Michigan. And again, just like in the winter, the east side of these Great Lakes usually take the worst of these based on the lake effect situation. Now, this will move to the east coast, or the northeast rather, as an upflow from the Gulf is also aiding in that, and we can look at that from our lightning chart here. We can see a lot of action going on in the Gulf of Mexico. This is normal for this time of year, which is also why I have this infrared loop up showing the Atlantic Ocean, because we are talking it could be a matter of hours, guys, before we see an invest pop up coming off the west coast of Africa here by the Cape Verde Islands. Now, I am not the only one watching this. The National Hurricane Center is currently watching this area. As you can see here, right off the coast, they have a 24% chance, sorry about that, of possible cyclone formation. So they are not taking this lightly, neither am I. This is the peak month of hurricane season for the Atlantic Ocean. And, you know, with all the action going on, basically along the equator, that's why these storms are being shot out like a conveyor belt in the Pacific Ocean near the Caribbean. That index intensity chart we usually look at, I don't have it pulled up now, but basically this is all in the red. The entire Gulf of Mexico is in the red, and the Caribbean's in the red. So with that said, tying it all together, if we get an invest in this area and it does make it all the way down towards the Leeward Islands, the chances are very high that we will see the action in the Atlantic Ocean begin to pick up. So it's unfortunate, but it is that time of year, and it can become a rapid-fire situation like we had last season, where within about a 2 or 3 week period, we had 4 to 5 hurricanes. At one point, we had 4 hurricanes at the same time that you would be able to see on this chart. So, all right, let's see if I missed anything here. We could see the front of that storm that is making its way across Minnesota and Iowa, basically just leaving Nebraska and South Dakota. On top of that, guys, believe it or not, Montana and Wyoming, we have winter weather advisories going on. You could see that with the purple here. That is snow. We are actually getting snow in higher elevations in both of these states. This will move a little bit to the east, and then it will taper off. I don't see there being any snow issues with North Dakota or South Dakota. You can see as the moisture moves from west to east, it does get warmer, and it turns into these torrential downpours that are currently going on in Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And then clearly you could see with the orange here, this is the heat wave warnings. We have excessive heat going on in some areas in some of these counties. Some of these places are over 100 degrees, so there's a lot going on. In the continental U.S., we have the Pacific Ocean going completely nuts, and now we have to worry about the Atlantic. So once again, to tie it all together, we are watching Miriam, which could be a hurricane by the time this video is posted. We have the 90% over 5 days, which would be Tropical Storm Norman and then Hurricane Norman, and then after that would be Olivia. That is for the Pacific Ocean. And you can see the 90% here. They are not recognizing the 20% on this chart, at least not yet. And they're still sticking to that 65 mile per hour. Again, 74 miles per hour would be Category 1 hurricane, and they're expecting that to happen basically any hour now. For all we know, it could be right now, and they just haven't updated the charts. Now, really quick, you could see on this Mimic chart, this is a chart I like to use. They've actually upgraded the chart. We can watch the last 120 hours of time, and you could see Hurricane Lane as it passed through Hawaii and then made that southern dip. We can also see tropical storm, soon to be Hurricane Miriam right here, and then it has a little bit of help. If you notice at the last frame, I'll actually stop it right here. You can see this spot right here to the northwest of Miriam. This would be where Miriam is now, and then we have Norman, more than likely Norman, back in this area, but we have a little action going on up here, and what this is doing is it's producing moisture that is then being pulled up by Miriam. So it's actually almost like a lead blocker. It's like fueling moisture into Miriam, which could cause that rapid intensification we see with some of these hurricanes, where they go from Category 1 to 3 in a single day or even sooner than that. So I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying you can see it in a lot of these charts. It almost has this storm leading in front of it, that Miriam is actually picking up that moisture and using it as fuel. You can really see it in this water vapor chart here. You can see those little bands coming off Miriam as it gets stronger. Definitely starting to rotate in that counterclockwise movement. And right there you see that spot. This is actually a storm that is allowing Miriam to get stronger, believe it or not. It is fueling this. It is adding moisture to this storm. And if it does follow that track, that's what we want to see. We want to see Miriam move up to the north before it starts to level out and head towards the west, which would clear the main island of Hawaii. And once again, Norman right behind it, which you can't see in this chart, is actually more of a concern to me than Miriam is right now based on the spaghetti plots we looked at. All right, I hope I didn't confuse anyone here. We did cover a lot. This is Tropical Storm Lane. We're backtracking to Lane again. As you can see, it is getting stronger. It will eventually go north and then become possibly a hurricane again, believe it or not. Now, we just got to keep an eye on it and watch it, although it won't be a threat to the U.S. anymore. Seeing these storms like Hector and Lane both basically cross the entire Pacific Ocean and keeping form for the most part is very rare to see. So I just wanted to show you guys that. Again, here's the path of what they're saying about Lane. It's going to be from a depression back to a tropical storm, possibly by Wednesday, and then later on in the week, still a tropical storm, according to the data we have right now. Once again, the west coast of Africa is producing enough storms to where the National Hurricane Center is beginning to recognize them. Now, will they make it to the Leeward Islands? That's what we need to start watching out for. In my opinion, it's just a matter of time before we start seeing what's happening in the Pacific Ocean happen for at least about a 3 to 4 week period in the Atlantic Ocean. So, fingers crossed that we don't have to worry about that like we did last year, but the signs are there, the storms are there, and they're beginning to connect. So with that said, guys, that is our update for right now. I will be back later on this evening to give you an update on Miriam when it becomes a hurricane. Until then, everyone have a good Monday. Hope you had a good work day, and we will talk very soon. Thank you guys for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.